Hey everybody, welcome back to the Print 3D channel. As you can see, it's a mega unboxing time. We've got 4 maker boxes in the shop and we're gonna open them up, check out the cool filaments inside, print some stuff, and I'll share my results with you guys, so stick around. Hey everybody, welcome back, and thank you for joining me here on the Print 3D channel. Like I was saying in the introduction, we've got a bit of a mega unboxing to do. I'm a little bit behind in my maker boxes, so we're gonna do 4 at once. So that's 4, 8, 12, 16 samples of filament that we're gonna go through today, or at least we're gonna get started on them today, and I'll just keep printing until I'm done. And then we'll wrap up all the results at the end and we'll talk about all these cool filaments, because there's always cool filaments. Big bonus, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 candy surprises inside, so that's kind of cool. So let's move these out of the way. We have May, April, March, and here's February. So let's go ahead and get into it. As always, these boxes were sent to the channel for free for review. We weren't compensated in any way for our efforts. We just get to play with some really cool filaments, and I get to share my results with you guys. So we're doing things a little bit differently. I'm gonna bring this over here. So I hope you guys can see it in the other camera there. I'm gonna move this back so I can see it too. You guys should be able to see it, but I'll be able to pull things out a little bit differently and show them as I'm talking about them. We can move through them a little bit quicker that way. I suppose I should cap this up, or at least move it out of the way, safety first. So right off the bat, we have a Glitter Bomb Robo sticker. So there's that. Talk about that at some point. We've got a MakerBox Me sticker. And we've got the advertisement for Pips Mountain, which do custom dice for tabletop gaming. We have the Ignore Me, as usual. This is their referral program. Refer 3 friends, get a free maker box. We have Announcing Cryptid Crate, which is by Box Mountain. Looks like it's going to be filled with various cryptozoology and paranormal themed items to wear, display, and collect. Ooh, kind of cool. And here we have our 4 filaments, and the first one we have is Filatough in yellow from Filatech, and I'm just gonna cover up the URL code or the QR code and just let you guys see that right away. And you can see it's a nice bright yellow color. And let me tell you what's going on in the specs. The hot end temperature is 220 to 240, the bed temperature is 50 to 60. Speed is not listed, cooling it says none, other it says none. The information says Filatough is an engineering compound filament which provides high toughness, excellent balance between hardness and flexibility, superior high temperature resistance, and high chemical resistance to a wide range of chemicals. I think I've used some of this Filatough before. This is a very familiar description. It is a very flexible material, that's for sure. Withstands up to 130 C of working temperature, similar to PC, and superior high impact resistance. Does not contain hazardous chemicals like styrene, which is in ABS, and Biosphere, which is in PC. Yeah, it's an interesting filament. Be fun to play with. That's Filatough Yellow from Filatech. Next up, we have some Pet G Spearmint Green. Oh, cool, from Greengate 3D. Bringing it in with the cool filaments again. That's a nice one. Let me show you the color here. It's pretty cool. So Pet G Spearmint Green. This is typical Pet G from Greengate. It's, I believe this is truly recycled plastic. Yep. Exclusively extrudes filament from scrap plastics. So they're doing their part to help out the environment and provide us with awesome printing materials. That's really cool. Kudos to you guys at Greengate 3D. And the print temperature for their Pet G is 205 to 245. Bed temperature is room to 90 C. Speeds 25 to 80. Cooling, none or low. As you guys know, printing Pet G, you might want to keep it hot. And that's about it. Obviously in the info is what I just said, that Greengate 3D exclusively extrudes filament from scrap plastics. No virgin found here. So proudly made in the United States of America. So some of that Greengate Spearmint Green. It's a Pet G. This will be fun to print with, and I'm already digging that color. Next up, we have some Pro PLA Iron Red from 3D Fuel. Ooh, this is a really cool color. This is a Pro PLA, and I'll cover up the QR code so you guys can see the label. And then we'll flip around so you guys can see the color. And let's talk about it. Pro PLA Iron Red, very cool color. Hot end temperature is 210 to 240 C. The bed temperature is room to 60. Speeds 40 to 100 millimeters. Cooling, yes, other none. Information says Pro PLA or APLA Plus has a higher impact resistance, higher impact strength than ABS and standard PLA. with a heat resistance rival that of ABS. Available in both sizes or both diameters of filament, will help. New Pro PLA will help your 3D printed projects look amazing and perform amazingly. Oh, anneal your design after 3D printing for even better heat resistance. Oh, so it is annealable, and this is from 3D Fuel. This is their Pro PLA Iron Red, and that is a very, very cool color. So that's number 3, and we've got a flexible, and the candy is in here. I wasn't going to say anything, but I saw it down at the bottom. So this is VarioSure TPU from ColorFab. The hot end temperature says 190 to 250. The bed temperature is not listed, speed's not listed, cooling's not listed, and it does say this is an experimental material. This is very interesting TPU. It does have a bit of a stiffness to it, but it just says VarioSure TPU allows your user to vary the density of the material by adjusting temperature and material throughput, so speed and layer height. The base TPU is a 92A material, which will work with most standard extruder setups for both Bowden and direct drive systems. So this is going to be fun. Experimental material. So I'm robbing you guys of seeing the front of this so the QR code doesn't activate. Hopefully that's in focus. You guys can see it. And then it's just like a white, almost. It has like no colorant in it. Very much so. And that's from ColorFab. And here's our candy. It's Nerds. We have Nerds. All right, so put that candy aside. And I want to keep all these separate because we've got a lot of boxes to go through. So we have our VarioSure TPU from ColorFab. We have our Pro PLA Iron Red from 3D Fuel. We have some awesome PETG and Spearmint Green coming from GreenGate 3D. And we have some Filatuff in yellow from Filatech. We also got a few little propaganda pieces for different types of services, including this new cryptid crate, which I think my wife would be interested in this, and the Pips Mountain, the Ignore Me, and of course our Nerds. And we did get a MakerBox Me sticker. Okay, so that is February box. So let's go ahead and set that up there. Let's move on to the next one. This is March. Let's go ahead and open it right up. Let's get right into it. Let's see what we got in March's box. Obviously, with the current events, it was really hard for me to get anything done. I was so focused on working from home and other things. That's the reason why you guys didn't see these on a monthly basis. So let's go ahead and get into this box. This is March. So you guys can see that. And we have US monofilaments. I've worked with this filament before. It's fun to print with. We have a small bag of Skittles. We have the Ignore Me, which is their filament referral system. You refer 3 friends, you get a free box of filament, or free MakerBox month. We have BASF InnoFil 3D. Ooh, BASF's getting into the filament game. That's awesome to hear. Okay, so there's our filaments. We have Fortis LL White, which is a health fill. This is an orthopedic 3D filament. All right, let's show you guys the front of the package there. Yeah, let's try that. How's that? And then you can see it's a definite white. It's definitely a nice white color. And it says this is Fortis LL White. The hot end temperature is 250 to 265, bed temperature is 90, speed is 40 to 60 millimeters per second, and the cooling is 20 to 100%. It says its PET packing tape may help with bed adhesion. So Kapton tape or some sort of surface to help stick. It's an orthopedic 3D filament. The polyolefin matrix allows the combination of relatively elasticity, elastic memory, innervation resistance with high wear and laceration threshold. Wow. This looks like some scientific filament, or at least sounds like it. It's an exceptional lightweight properties too. This might be fun to print with. This is from a new company I've never heard of. It's called Healthfill out of Italy. So there's our first pack. Next up, we have some matte PLA here from Filament. This is another new company. Let's check out the front. You guys can see it. And you can see this is a really cool looking yellow. And I like matte filaments, as you guys know. So this will be fun. Let me read about it. Again, this is matte PLA from Filament. Hot end temperature is 200 to 230. Bed temperature is 50 to 70. Speed is not listed. Cooling is at 100%. The info says Filament's new matte line of filament delivers a premium product that makes for perfect prints. The low gloss finish looks stunning when printed and doesn't chew through your nozzle. I've never had any issues with matte filament eating up my nozzle, but it's good to know. And I really like it because it's a yellow and it's matte. Next up, we have some carbon fiber PC plus PBT from Push Plastics. Show you guys the front. Here's the back. It's carbon fiber, super stiff filament. This will be fun to print with for sure. Let's talk about it. Carbon fiber PC plus PBT. Now, hot end temperatures 250 to 270. Bed temperatures 90 to 120. The speed is 30 to 55 millimeters, and the cooling is none or low. It says info is Push Plastics carbon fiber PC plus PBT maintains the same benefits of pure PC plus PBT, chemically resistant, impact resistant, high toughness, and thermal stability, with the added benefits of ease of printing and dimensional stability from the carbon fiber. That's pretty interesting. This is made in the USA from Push Plastics. So this will be pretty fun to print with. Definitely thinking about an enclosure for some of these filaments I'm getting in, because they might be a little bit on the stinky side. And number 4 is from IC3D. This is another TPU. This is a 70D, 70 durometer, I'm guessing. So let me cover up the QR code so you guys can see the front of the box, or the front of the package. And then get a little shot of the back, and you can see this is some of the clearest filament I've ever seen before. Normally something like this would be like a glow in the dark, but this is just some really, really cool clear filament from IC3D. I've never used their filament before. It's made in Italy. This should be an interesting testing of all these. So let me read you what's on here. Again, it's TPU 70D. Hot end temperatures 230 to 250. The bed temperature is up to 60 or up to 80 C. Speed is not listed. Cooling is not listed. It says an ultra tough impact resistant filament. This high durometer TPU is stiffer than the flex TPU you are used to, but still maintains the benefit of toughness. It is more flexible than PETG and should not require any special considerations when printing. I like to hear that, and I may print this first. So this is some really cool TPU from IC3D. Super clear too. It'll be fun to print with this one. All right, so that's our 4 filaments for the March box. We have some TPU 70 durometer. We have some carbon fiber PC plus PBT. We have some matte PLA here from Filament, new company I've never heard of. And we have some Fortis LL White from Headphone. Some very interesting orthopedic, it looks like medical style filament, something that could be used in a medical situation. So this would be good for PPE printing or for orthopedic or prosthetic devices, especially if they have other colors. We also got a sticker from BASF, the Ignore Me, which is their referral program, some Skittles, and a sticker from US Monofilaments. So that is the March box. Let's go ahead and close that up, and let's move on to April. Oh, let's get that MakerBox showing out front. All right, let's bring in April. Let's go ahead and open this up and see what we got in April's box. Right off the bat, we have a new style of the MakerBox Me sticker. Kind of a cool color design. We have the Ignore Me, the referral program. We have a warning, do not touch, serious or injury, filaments.ca. Oh, it's a little warning thing for your 3D printer, and it means if you touch it, someone's going to hit you with a sword. So that's really cool. I like that idea a lot. We have the Pips Mountain information. They are custom tabletop gaming dice company. Filamatrix, this looks like a new nylon Kevlar, is a first of its kind product that infuses aramid fibers into the filament. Ooh, that sounds interesting right off the bat. I hope that's in this box. And we have Airheads is our candy of the month. Whoa, almost got away from me. Airheads, it's a mystery, white mystery. Ooh, these are always weird. You never know what flavor you're gonna get. So set that aside and let's dig into the filaments. We have our 4. First up is we have some polychromatic PLA Mystic Green from Prusa Mint. Finally, a sample of Prusa Mint. I've been wanting to try Mr. Prusa's filament for some time now. So let's go ahead and cover up the QR code. And I'll show you the back. It's a Mystic Green. It's gonna be a cool color. So I'm super excited to print with this. Like I said, I've always wanted to print with some of the Joseph Prusa's Prusa Mint. So this is the polychromatic PLA Mystic Green. And it says hot end temperature of 210 to 230 with bed temperature up to 60 C. Speed is not listing. Cooling's at 100%. The info is it green? Is it gray? With Prusa Mint Premium PLA Mystic Green, it's up to you. You can experiment with higher nozzle temperatures, layer heights, and nozzle diameters to get fabulous light effects on your objects. That's very cool. Very excited about that. So there's some Prusa Mint. Prusa Mint Mystic Green. That's our first filament. Next up, we have some EcoTough PETG here from filaments.ca. So let's cover up the QR code and let you guys see the front of the package. And let's spin it around so you can see. It's a nice black filament. Looks really, really cool. We'll talk about this. This is the EcoTough PETG 2.0 with the print settings of hot end temperature of 200 to 230, Bed temperature of 60°C. The speed is 40 to 100 millimeters per second. Cooling is not listed, so PETG, probably no cooling would be best. And it says you've never printed PETG like this before. EcoTough PETG 2.0 is the latest advancement in the search for a PLA alternative. It combines the benefits of PLA printing with the chemical and heat resistance of PETG and the toughness of nylon. Oh, that's a bold claim, so we're definitely going to have to check that out. We've got some really fun filaments to print with already in this box. Next up, we have laser marking PLA from Color Fab. This looks like another experimental filament. I'm already seeing it's got kind of a cool gray texture or even color to it. So laser marking PLA from Color Fab. It says the hot end temperature is 190 to 220. The bed temperature is 50 to 60°C. The speed is 40 to 100 millimeters per second, and the cooling is 100%. It does say it's an experimental material. Laser marking PLA contains a laser-sensitive additive optimized for work with 980-1064 nanometer wavelength. This material has been tested successfully with NDYAG- and fiber lasers. Laser marking PLA will not work with CO2 lasers. Interesting. Oh, okay, so you could laser engrave onto this filament. So, okay, cool. That's an interesting multi-step. You could 3D print something, CNC something, and then laser something. And you could do the lasering right onto all those materials. So this is a laser marking from Color Fab. Another interesting material. I need to get a laser engraver. Next up, we have the nylon Kevlar, and this is from Filamatrix. Let's go ahead and cover up that QR code. You guys can see it. It's got kind of a carbon fiber look to it. I can see it in the bag. It's kind of a rough finish on the surface of the filament. And let's talk about it. This is nylon Kevlar from Filamatrix. It's got a hot end temperature of 240 to 260, a bed temperature of 70°C. Speed is not listed. Cooling is off or low. It says a hardened nozzle is advised. Dry for best results. So we'll definitely keep this in here. I may even throw some more Deskit bags inside there. The info says a nylon Kevlar is the first of its kind product that infuses aramid fibers into the filament. With this unique formulation, users can expect all the great attributes associated with nylon: toughness, durability, tensile strength, and the heat resistance and improved wear resistance. So I wonder how much Kevlar is actually in here and how strong it really is. This is going to be a fun one. Again, this is nylon Kevlar from Filamatrix. Some cool filament. So those are our 4 filaments for the April Maker Box. So we have some nylon Kevlar from Filamatrix. We have some laser marking PLA from Color Fab. We have some EcoTough PETG 2.0 from filaments.ca. And we have some Prushiment, some polychromatic PLA Mystic Green. We also have a little information on Filamatrix, the Pips Mountain, a little sticker that's super entertaining. Let's show that again. I'll beat you with the sword. The Ignore Me, which is the referral program. You shouldn't ignore it. And a really cool MakerBox Me sticker, along with the mystery airheads in white. So let's box this up, set it aside, and let's get on to the last one. We have got a lot of printing to do. A lot of printing to do. All right, so this is the May box. Let's go ahead and open it up. Again, these are Explorer series, so we always get 4 samples of filament. And all the information for MakerBox will be down in the description, along with links to every single manufacturer that we're featuring in this mega unboxing, and links to the models that we're going to print, which will be the Cali Cat and the Rose Twist Face. So let's go ahead and open this up and see what we got inside. Again, we have the classic Ignore Me, which is their referral program. We have a Filamatrix sticker, so maybe you'll have some more of that cool Kevlar filament or some other filament from them. And it looks like it got shaken up a little bit. Oh, there they are. And we have just a tiniest little package of Starburst. All right, so let's dig in. We have some wood fill PLA from Push Plastic. Awesome. Let's cover up that QR code and let you guys see the front of the package. And then this, it is a wood fill. I wonder if it's genuinely wood fill. We're going to find out soon enough. All right, so let's talk about it. This is wood fill PLA from Push Plastic. The hot end temperature is 195 to 215. The bed temperature is 60°C. Speed is not listed. The cooling is always at 100% for wood fill filaments, in my experience. It's best to print with a large nozzle and layers over 0.2 millimeters in height. It says that PLA filled with a high percentage of wood pulp to give a cool aesthetic effect can be stained with wood stain after printing. The wood gives a lower density for lighter prints. Awesome. As you guys know, I love wood fill filaments with actual wood in them, so this will be a fun one to print with. And again, this is wood fill PLA from Push Plastics. Next up, we have Zenith PETG++ from Filamatrix. Let's cover up that QR code so you guys can see the front of the package. And then I'll show you it. It's got an interesting color to it. It's kind of an off-white color. So let's talk about it. This is Zenith PETG++ from Filamatrix. It's got a hot end temperature of 240C with a bed temperature of 70C. Speeds not listing, cooling, off or low. PETG, always off, or as low as humanly possible. Nothing in the other. The info says it's a copolyester specifically formulated for maximum ease of printing without sacrificing physical properties. Zenith prints under similar conditions to many PETGs, gives a higher quality parts due to excellent bridging and retraction properties. Zenith also gives higher impact strength and HDT than a typical PETG. Zenith is proudly made in the USA to the highest diameter tolerances on the market. So this is some more of the Filamatrix. This is a new company I've never heard of. We've got some other ones in the other boxes from this company, including some Kevlar. So there's a couple rolls or a couple samples from Filamatrix. Next up, we have antibacterial PLA from FiberForce. I've never heard of these guys, and antibacterial sounds like something we could use for prosthetic devices or for PPE printing. So I'll show you this color. It's an interesting dark teal color. It's a very, very cool color. And let's talk about it. This is the antibacterial PLA from FiberForce. The hot end temperature is 200 to 215 C. The bed temperature is room to 50 C. The speed is 40 to 85 millimeters per second, and the cooling's at 100%. And under the info, it says it's a PLA blended with antibacterial additive. Visit FiberForce for more technical data and the results of bacteria reduction testing. So we'll have to do some information and see what this is all about. This is antibacterial PLA from FiberForce. So an interesting company, never heard of it. And last up, we have some flame retardant ABS from filaments.ca. Flame retardant. We got some interesting filaments. Man, I've been missing some cool stuff. I got to stay on top of the MakerBox. We're coming back with more MakerBoxes. I got to take a little break. So here's the filament retardant ABS from filaments.ca. So let's talk about this one. Flame retardant ABS from filaments.ca with a hot end temperature of 230, bed temperature of 110 C, speeds not listed, cooling's not listed. It says printing in a well-ventilated space is advised because it's ABS. Flame retardant ABS filament made from specifically formulated ABS plastic that when removed from a flame source, it will extinguish. Interesting. If you have ever lit ABS plastic, you know it burns like the wick on a candle. This filament, whilst it ignites, self-extinguishes within seconds. It's the Chi-Me fire retardant ABS grade PA-764+. I don't know what that means, but we'll definitely have some fun with this. And I don't have any experience printing with ABS, so this will be a fun one. Again, this is flame retardant ABS from filaments.ca. So that was our fourth filament. Before that, we had some antibacterial PLA from FiberForce with a really cool dark teal color. We had some Zenith PETG++ from Filamatrix, some really cool high tolerance filament, and some exciting wood fill PLA from Push Plastics with some genuine wood fill in there. We also got a little pack of Starburst. We got a Filamatrix sticker, and we have the classic Ignore Me. So that wraps up the May box of MakerBox Subscription Explorer. So let's go ahead and set these guys back up again. Try not to show my address on camera. And finally this one. So here are our four boxes. We have February, March, April, May. So the next round will be obviously the bend test, the clip test, and a diameter check, and then we'll get right into printing. So let's go ahead and switch some cameras around and dig right into these boxes. Okay, everybody, we're back and we've got all of our samples printed out from about 90% of the filaments that we got in these 4 MakerBox boxes of subscription filaments. We had a little bit of trouble with a flexible filament here, and we had a little bit of trouble with what was supposed to be like a semi-flexible filament, and then this particular filament had some diameter inconsistencies, but we'll talk about that when we get there. The first thing we need to do is kind of rearrange everything so we can go over each box individually, and I can explain any printing difficulties I had with each of these filaments, and we have a lot to go through. So let's go ahead and reset the stage a little bit here so we can go through. We'll start here with February, March, April, and then May. So let's go ahead and start with February. All right, so we've got everything set up here. Let's kind of move through these boxes pretty quickly. I still want to give you my honest opinion about each one of these filaments, but we have a lot to go through and the video is going to be pretty long. So let's go ahead and start with the very short TPU. This is from Color Fab, and obviously this is their white. This is an experimental filament too. So I had to kind of dial in my settings as I went, and I had no other fails or any issues with it. I don't have any fails in the bag here. So I was able to start with the low poly rose twist vase, which is sometimes what I printed first. As you can see, I have a lot more of those here than Cali Cats. This was simpler to print, and it would give me a chance to really dial in my settings as far as heat and how fast I could print, especially with an experimental filament like this TPU. And it turned out awesome. I'm really happy with the result. It has that memory quality, so it just kind of pops back. And it's the rigidity on this is really nice, and it's still flexible. The Cali Cat turned out really, really nice. Here's the low poly rose twist vase. And the Cali Cat turned out really, really nice too. And the tail still has its flexibility, but it's super rigid. I really like this a lot. This is some really cool filament. Again, this is very short TPU from Color Fab. Since it's an experimental filament, I don't have my settings written down here because I was kind of on the fly, but I can tell you that I printed this at 20 millimeters per second, and I printed at my standard TPU temperatures, which is 230 C on the hot end and 40 C on the heated bed. So, and I printed at 20 millimeters per second. And I think with the Cali Cat, I was able to bring this up to 25 millimeters per second during the print cycle. So this is a really easy to print with TPU. I had no fails. Both of my prints turned out awesome. I'm really happy with it. I hope they do produce this because I do like printing with the TPUs. It gives you a different kind of print experience, especially when you see I printed like so many different things. This was a nice first filament to start with. Was a really cool, very short TPU from Color Fab. And again, all the filaments that we used in all these 4 boxes from the MakerBox subscription, their information will be listed down in the description if you want to check. I don't know if this is being produced yet. It may have been at the recording of this video. I hadn't checked, but if it is, get your hands on this. It's some cool filament. I do like Color Fab's materials. They do print really easily. So let's move on to the PLA Iron Red from 3D Fuel. And obviously that's the red one. So let's go ahead and put the Cali Cat up and let's talk about the rose twist vase. And obviously you can see just from the appearance in the general video that this turned out awesome. This is some really, really cool filament. This is some Pro PLA. It's their Iron Red. And again, I said it's from 3D Fuel. The hot end temperature is 210 to 240, bed temperature is room to 60, speed 40 to 100 millimeters per second, and cooling is yes. And now this is a Pro PLA, which is an APLA plus. So I guess it's a higher impact resistant than your standard PLA, which brings us to Pro PLA. So it has ABS-like qualities. But I had no issues printing this, and I printed it at my standard PLA temperatures. Again, this is 210 to 240, which is a little bit higher in the range. So I printed mine at 215. I was printing almost everything. Actually, everything you see here was printed on the glass bed with either heat or no heat. Magic Goo for assist or no Magic Goo for assist. It just depended on my opinion of how I felt like this might print. With the experience I've had with previous maker boxes, I can kind of guess on how the bed adhesion needs are going to be, or what the temperature of the bed is going to be needed for any particular type of filament. So for this, I just printed it out at 50 C on the bed, and like I said, 210 to 215. I think I printed this at 215 C on the hot end. And the prints turned out awesome. There were no problems. It's really, really solid. I definitely say this is a very rigid Pro PLA. And the Cali Cat turned out really, really nice. There's a bit of stringing here between the tail and the head. There's not any of that corner warpage or melting that happens, or curling that happens on the Cali Cat, not as much as other filaments.
So this one turned out really nice. I'm super happy with this. I do love this color. It's a really nice, rich red color. I definitely would say this is an iron red. It's iron red maybe in reference to it's like a blood red color because of iron in the blood, but it's a really nice color. It printed really nice. I didn't have any problems with it. It popped off the print bed without an issue. And again, this is Pro PLA Iron Red from 3D Fuel. So let's go ahead and move on to the next filament, which is a awesome filament from Greengate. This is the Petchy and Spearmint Green. So let's go ahead and put up the Cali Cat. And you can see on the Cali Cat, I did have a little bit of stringing between the tail and the body, but it was very nominal, and I kept moving with my prints. I didn't really adjust this temperature too much over the 205 to 245. In this instance, I printed this out at 215, because that's what I print out all my Greengate Petchy filaments out at. This is 100% recycled. This is their Spearmint Green. It has a little bit of sparkle to it, but this printed perfectly like all of the Greengate filaments that I printed with in the past. I didn't have any problems with it. It's a nice solid Petchy. I definitely might use this for some sort of projects that would need the Petchy strength, like some sort of CNC machine or some sort of robotics or cosplay prop of some type. But this printed out really nice. I love the look of this filament, the Spearmint Green. Cali Cat, like I said, had a little bit of stringing between the tail and the body, but it was very nominal. There is a little bit of that curling in the corners from a little bit of warping from the heat, but when I'm dialing up and down the temperatures, sometimes I'll have a little bit of traces of that, and then I don't have another instance of that to see if I've improved on it, but I know from printing experiences what to do, which either increase the cooling or increase or decrease the heat. For this instance, the bed temperature was set at 50 C, which is my normal temperature for printing almost every type of filament, unless it's an exotic type of filament. And I did print these out at 35 millimeters per second, which is considerably slow, but I turn off my variables so there are no differences except for the outer perimeter, which prints at 70% speed. So this was printed at 35 millimeters per second throughout it, except for the outer perimeters. And it turned out really nice. The details there, it's a nice clean filament. There's no blobs on it, there's no gobs, there's no layer skips or extrusion skips on this. There was no popping during it. It didn't absorb any moisture during the storage or before I printed it or while I was printing it. So this is some really great filament. I really love the way it looks. The low poly rose twist base, you can see when you turn it, there's some sparkles to it. So it's a really cool filament. So that was the Spearmint Green Petchy from Greengate. And then finally we have, I'll move these out of the way, and you can see here we have our little pile of stuff. And I'll put, it's all attached. Because you can see I was printing in succession here, and there's a ton of little Cali Cat feet. Here's one right here. Just a ton of little Cali Cat, just the footprints of it, because it would just peel off the bed. Now, I tried every single setting in the book for this, which is my normal procedure when I'm having some difficulties printing. This is FILATough, it's from Filatech. It's a very flexible filament. It's definitely got some Petchy aspects to it and TPU at the same time, but its temperature range was 220 to 240. The bed temperature is 50 to 60. Speed's not listed, cooling none, because it is a flexible filament. You normally don't want to use a lot of cooling with flexible filaments, but it just did not want to complete maybe one or two layers, no matter what I did. If I adjusted the temperature of the bed, turned the bed off, used some Magic Goo, I adjusted the temperature in all aspects of the temperature range during all my other testing towards, that was leaning towards bed adhesion, which was turning the bed off, turning it on, lowering the temperature below 50 C, which is the recommended temperature, and turning it up over 60 C, which is the high end of the temperature. And during that time, we did 220, 225, 230, 240, and I actually went up to 260 at one point, and it still would not just like stay on the bed and continue printing. So this will go into the pile of, I'll give it another shot at another time, and someday we'll go through all those and we'll figure out how to get those to print. But it's an interesting looking filament. It has a lot of really cool qualities on what did print. It has that, like I said, it's kind of like it kind of has that Petchy feel to it, but it's still a little bit flexible, but the layer adhesion just wasn't happening. And of course it wasn't sticking on the print bed. So that was basically all I did for the FILATough Yellow from Filatech. Again, I'll give this another shot another time, but I had to move on because we have a lot of filaments to print with in these 4 boxes. So overall, I would say for the February box, We got a great selection of filaments. I'm really disappointed I couldn't get this to print because it has some interesting qualities to it, and I really do like testing out exotic materials. But the very short TPU, the experimental filament from ColorFab, that turned out awesome. The 3D Fuels Pro PLA Iron Red, of course you can see that turned out really great. And of course, the PETG Spearmint Green from Greengate 3D, that's 100% recycled PETG. All their filaments turned out great, and this was no exception. This turned out awesome. I'm super happy with the way this looks. Overall, I'd say February's box was a success. I don't call this a fail, I just call this, I didn't have the right type of printer. Maybe I needed a heated build chamber. I think that's the only thing I'm lacking in my print arsenals, being able to have a heated area around the printer to keep filaments like this in a constant state of flexibility or in fluidity. But either way, it was fun to print with all these. They work with some really cool filaments. I love printing with PETGs. It's one of my favorites, so getting a sample of PETG in the February box is always fun. And of course, experimental filaments. Those are always fun to play with. I think I have another one in here, so let's go ahead and move on to the next box. All right, so we have our March box all set up with the prints that we had success with. We did have a little issue with this Fotis LL, which is a orthopedic 3D filament. I just couldn't get that one to print, but we'll talk about that in a second. Let's go ahead and talk about our print successes. And we'll start with this matte PLA. This is from Filament. I don't think I've ever heard of this company before, but this is a really nice looking matte finish PLA. The hot end temperature is 200 to 230. The bed temperature is 50 to 70. The speed wasn't listed and the cooling's at 100%. Now I don't normally run any filament with a cooling at 100% because my G-Max has a very strong cooling fan on it. But I did do the temperature at 215 C is where I started. I ended up at 210 C. The bed temperature, it's PLA, so I left it at 50 C, and I printed it out at 35 millimeters per second with no variables. So this turned out really, really great. I really love the way this looks. It's got a beautiful finish to it. It's a true matte. I haven't seen anything as matte as this before. I'd love to see some other colors, but the print itself, it turned out awesome. I had no problems printing it. It's got the nice shiny bottom. You can see all the layer lines or all the extrusion lines on the bottom are nicely aligned. They're not squished out. There's no problem with bed adhesion. I did use a little bit of Magic Glue with the heated bed, but that's what my normal procedure is for printing with PLA. So let's take a look at the Cali Cat while you guys take a look at the Rose Twist Vase. I did have some issues, and that was my temperature adjustment from 215 C to 210 C, because I did see a little bit of that melting going on in the corners here, and that's the normal adjustment. I'll just drop it down 5 degrees, and sometimes I'll increase the cooling depending on the type of filament I use. But I left my cooling at maximum at 60%, and I think that's more than enough for PLA printing. But this Cali Cat turned out awesome. The matte finish will bring out any print errors, and I don't see any on the surface of this. This turned out really great. There is a little bit of stringing between the tail and the body, but I get that on almost every single Cali Cat I print, no matter what the temperature setting is for it. So I think that's nominal in as far as the print quality goes. But the Cali Cat turned out great. The Rose Twist Vase turned out really, really great. I'm super happy with it. It was time to move on to the next filament. And in this box, it's another TPU, and that would be this one here, which is a natural or clear color. And this is TPU 770D from IC3D. Now this was a really fun filament to print with. I did print 2 Rose Twist Vase because I had a strange issue at the top there where it didn't matter what print speed or temperature I adjusted, it just kept doing that little bubbly look. So I have 2 of those printed out. But other than that, this printed out awesome. I didn't have any other problems with it. I believe this has something to do with my cooling or extrusion or speed or something like that. It has nothing to do with the filament. The hot end temperature on this is 230 to 250 C. The bed temperature is up to 80 C. The speed's not listed, the cooling's not listed. Others says none. It's an ultra tough impact resistant filament. It's a high durometer TPU that is stiffer than flexible TPU and still maintains the benefit of toughness. And it is a tough filament. I do like this. This has this almost like a soda bottle plastic type of feel to it, a thin one at that, but it still has that feel to it. And the Cali Cat turned out awesome. There is just like maybe 1 or 2 little string hairs between the tail and the body, and I didn't have any of the same problems that I normally have with printing the Cali Cat, but the temperature was so high because I printed this out at 240 degrees C on my hot end, and I did ramp up the bed temperature to 60 C from 50 C, and then I did turn it up to 70 C between these 2 prints, so my maximum temperature printed was 70 C. But 240 C on the hot end, and I wanted to lower the temperature, but I know there's layer adhesion issues with TPU if you don't keep the temperatures high. So it does have a little bit of that curling, a little bit in the corner melting aspect to it, but it's nominal. And if I was printing some other objects, I definitely would pay attention to that with some other print adjustment. But overall, I think this TPU from IC3D printed awesome and really had no problems with it. Again, this is some weird setting issue. I don't believe it has anything to do with the filament because they turned out awesome and it's in the same place in both models. But this is some cool filament. I definitely would print with this again. I would maybe find out if I could use this as a food safe filament and maybe make my own water bottles or something like that. But it was a cool filament to print with. Moving on, the next filament on the line here is from Push Plastic, and it's a carbon fiber PC plus PBT. Now, this was another fun film, and it's got a nice rough finish to it. It really feel like there's some additive in here, and the additive is carbon fiber. And this was a really interesting filament to print with. We printed this at, the hot end temperature was listed at 250 to 270 C. The bed temperature is 90 to 120 C, which is really high. The speed is 30 to 50 millimeters per second, and cooling was set to none or low. Now, it's a PC plus PBT. So it has, according to the specifications here, it has a chemical resistance, impact resistance, high toughness, and thermal stability. Plus it has carbon fiber. So this is a all-around super cool filament, and it's super tough. I don't want to break this. I'm afraid I might actually break this, but I think it would cut me because it is some really strong filament. And the prints turned out awesome. You can see here on the Rose Twist Vase and on the Cali Cat. And in between, if I look there, I don't see any stringing whatsoever on a carbon fiber filament. I see nice smooth surfaces. It has a nice matte finish to it, so it really brings out any print issues. And I don't see any of that on the Cali Cat. In fact, this is it is almost perfect. There is a little bit of the corner melting going on, but I find that all the time with a hot end at something this small, and the speed at which it prints at, you're gonna see that quite often, and you can adjust it out to a certain extent. And I think that is as good as it gets. I wish I could show you how great that looks. But this is a really fun carbon fiber filament. It's from Push Plastics. I didn't have any problems printing with it. My print temperatures on this, believe it or not, I put on the bottom end because I don't push my hot end over 250 C. I printed this out at 250 C, which is the low end of the range. And the bed temperature, I printed out at 80 C instead of the 90 to 120. And I dropped my speed down to 30 millimeters per second, which is the low end of the print speed. And these prints turned out awesome. I'm super happy with the way they look. It's a really cool, unique filament, and I would definitely print with this again. And again, this is from Push Plastics, and it's a carbon fiber PC plus PBT. And the last filament we printed with is this little bit of a mess here. Now, this is what's called Photis LL in white. It's a orthopedic 3D filament. It's a polyolefin matrix, allows for a combination of relative elasticity, elastic memory, enervation resistance, and high wear and laceration threshold. It's an interesting filament. I just couldn't get it to print. The print temperature is really high, which is, again, this is as high as I'm gonna go, is 250. The print temperature on here was 250 to 265, bed temperature was 90, speed was 40 to 60, cooling was 200 to 100%, and it said packing tape may help with bed adhesion. Now, I don't want to put any packing tape on my glass bed or on my acrylic bed, and I don't have any spare beds, so I used what I had in front of me. And I didn't add the acrylic bed because I went through about 3 or 4 prints. Actually, I'd say that's 5 or 6 prints there of the low poly Rose Twist Vase, and the amount of shrinkage and the amount of non-layer adhesion, and then finally nozzle jams. I mean, it just, a lot of bad things happen. Now, I was disappointed because I really want to try something orthopedic, something like that would be great for enable hands, and to find a filament that's specific just for that type of application would be really cool. And I had high hopes for this, and I could not get it to print. So this is Photis LL. It's from Headphone. I've never heard of this company before. It's made in Italy. I just couldn't get it to print, and no matter what I did, and I didn't bring my temperature over 250. Maybe if I was able to bring my temperature over to 250 up into the 265 range, and it would be able to print the Rose Twist Vase, but I was unable to get it started. So this is an interesting filament. I wish I could get it to print. I'll definitely put this in the pile of, I'm gonna give this a shot at another time. So that was all the filaments for the March box. Again, we had some carbon fiber, we had some TPU, and we had this really awesome matte PLA from FILAMENT. I've never heard of that company. The IC3D I really love flexibles, and this is a really cool TPU, and of course this awesome carbon fiber here from Bush Plastics. So overall, I'd say this is a really cool box. If I had a heated build chamber, again, a very similar issue I think could be solved with just that one particular solution, which would be a heated build chamber. I think I could have gotten that filament to print, the Photos LL. But overall, this was a fun box to print, and I definitely would highly recommend these 3 filaments. And if you had a heated build chamber and you printed with that, I'd definitely like to hear if you had any success, and you can leave that down in the comments. So let's go ahead and move on to the April box, and let's take a look at those filaments. Okay, so we have our April printouts all set up. Let's go ahead and go through these real quick. We had a lot of success with these 4 filaments, and I had a lot of fun printing with that nylon Kevlar. We'll talk about that first because that was the coolest filament I've ever printed with as far as materials go. So I'll put up the Cali Cat here so you guys can see it, and I'll grab the rose twist vase. I have a couple other rosies. I'll put them up here, and I did have some failures, so we'll talk about that there too. There's a little bit of the failures and a little bit of the problems dialing this filament in. So the temperature on this is 240C to 260C with a bed temperature of 70C. Speed wasn't listed, cooling was off or low, and it said hardened nozzle and dry for best. And of course I have a hardened nozzle, so I never worry about that. And I haven't found any need to dry any of my filaments at this point, but I'm definitely going to consider getting some sort of drying unit if I decide to print in nylon at any point in the near future. But this nylon Kevlar from Filamatrix was some fun filament to print with. Now, like I said, I did have some issues getting started. I did dial up my hot end up to 250 and my bed temperature to 70C just to get us going, but it did give me some print success once I got to a certain aspect of that temperature range, which was 250 on the hot end and the bed temperature of 80C, which is above the recommended temperature. I did print these out at 30 millimeters per second just to make sure I got my nice Kevlar bonding going on. And I had my cooling set to only 20% for the entire prints. And after all those failures, I managed to get out a couple of prints that I'm happy with. Now there's some issues with this rose twist vase at the top. It started to spit a little bit. We started to have some extrusion skips. It wasn't skipping on the extruder, it was just not extruding filament for whatever reason. It's a very odd issue I've never seen before. But overall, this Kevlar filament, this nylon Kevlar filament, is some really cool stuff. I was super impressed with the way this looks. You guys take a look at that rose twist vase and you can see some of the issues at the top. I did have a little bit of stringing between the tail and the body, and it's very nominal. This is more wispy. I haven't removed it, so I can remove it now. And it's super wispy, but this is super cool. This is nylon Kevlar, and I don't know the consistency of the Kevlar. I don't know if it's ballistic preventative, but it's super cool. If I was going to print out some sort of modular bike or some sort of cool robotic stuff, I would definitely want to use something super strong. And if this Kevlar actually retains its strength throughout the print, then this is the way to go. And the prints look awesome. I had no problems printing whatsoever. Again, I had a few issues getting started, but once I got the prints going, there were no issues. And you can see on this Cali Cat, I barely have any curling up corners on those edges at all over in these corners here. And the only issue I did on the final good print of the rose twist vase was a little bit of that spitting, which was a really odd issue I'd never seen before. But overall, this filament from Filamatrix, this nylon Kevlar, this was super fun to print with. I'm definitely gonna look into getting some more of this. Next up was the EcoTough Pet G from our friends over at filament.ca. And this is a really cool filament to print with. Let's make sure we got our settings right here. It had a setting range of 200 on the hot end, of 200 to 230C, a bed temperature of 60C, a speed of 40 to 100 millimeters per second. Cooling was not listed, and other says none. So it says that this has a chemical and heat resistance of PET G along with the toughness of nylon. Now I don't know what additives were added to make it have those additional properties that give it the toughness of nylon, but this was super easy to print with PET G. Again, this is EcoTough PET G 2.0 from filaments.ca. It's a really great filament. I love the way it looks. It's kind of got a kind of like a shine to it, a little bit of sheen to it, so it's more like a satin finish over a matte or a gloss. So it really brings out all the polygons on the rose twist vase. And on the Cali Cat, which I did have a little bit of melty issues in these front corners where the extruder stops, because we did start this at 215C and I dropped it down to 210C when I saw that that was happening. And our bed temperature was set to 50C, which is our normal print temperature for PETGs and PLAs. I didn't bring it up to 60C. Our speed that we printed it out at was 35 millimeters per second with no variables, and the speed recommendation was 40 to 100 millimeters per second. But I didn't have any problems with it. In fact, the bottom of it looks good. We did use a little bit of Magic Goo for a bed assist, but the prints turned out really great. I'm super happy with the way this looks. Again, it's kind of got a satin finish to it, There was a little bit of heating issues in the beginning of the print, and you can see that pretty prevalent on the Cali Cat, but the rose twist face turned out awesome. It's super rigid. I actually like this PETG. I would definitely print again with this at another time. And again, this was Eco Tough PETG 2.0 from our friends at filaments.ca. So let's move on to the next filament, which is the Prussian Mint, and this is the polychromatic PLA Mystic Green. And let's go ahead and set that up so you guys can see. We'll put the Cali Cat up there, and let's take a look at the settings for this. Now the hot end temperature is 210C to 230, and the bed temperature is up to 60C. The speed is now listed cooling at 100%. Now this is a really cool filament. It's called Mystic Green, and it says, is it green, is it gray? With Prussian Mint's premium PLA Mystic Green, it's up to you. So you can experiment with the layer heights and the nozzle temperatures to get a different finish. And I got kind of like a brassy, it's a very interesting color from printing it out at 35 millimeters per second and using 215C on the hot end for both of the prints. Now the Cali Cat, it turned out pretty awesome. I don't see any stringing between the tail and the body, which is really good. So our 215C temperature was good for that aspect. But I did see a little bit of the meltiness where the extruder stopped in the corners on that. But again, that was nominal. And we did run the bed temperature at 50C, which is my normal print temperatures for PLA and PETG on the heated bed. And I did use a little bit of Magic Goo for an assist on both of these prints. I think they turned out awesome. This is some super interesting filament. I love this color changing aspect to it. It is a nice rigid PLA. I definitely recommend this for any type of printing. And it was super fun to print with because Prussian Mint is a really cool filament. I love the high quality that they retain when they're manufacturing the filament and the color and flexibility of the different kinds of materials that they offer. It's a really cool filament. If you can get a hold of some of this polychromatic PLA Mystic Green, definitely highly recommend this. It was fun to print with. I didn't have any problems with it, and I definitely want to get some more of it because this is some cool stuff. Lastly, we have something called laser marking PLA from ColorFab. Now, I don't have any laser engravers to do any experimenting with it, but I didn't have any problems printing with it. So that's a good sign that it's easy to print with. It's up to the viewer, I guess, if you can get a hold of some of this. It is an experimental material. Once again, ColorFab coming through with some cool experimental materials. But this is laser marking PLA. It says it's laser sensitive additive optimized to work with a 980 to 1064 nanometer wavelength laser. So you could print this and then put additional markings on this or designs, or not on this or any other print that you did, or serialize it so you have like a barcode on a part. So there's a lot of aspects to the laser marking that would make this a very interesting filament if you're running some sort of manufacturing business. And I'm sure they would have other colors should they make this available. Again, this is an experimental material. The hot end temperature was 190 to 220C, the bed temperature was 50 to 60C, and the speed was 400 to 100 millimeters per second, and of course cooling on 100%. So I didn't have any problems with this. We printed ours out at 210C, which is my normal area for printing PLA. And I left my bed temperature at 50C and my print speed at 35 millimeters per second, and I didn't move anything over 60% on my cooling, and I didn't have any problems. The rose twist face looks awesome. This feels like a very rigid PLA too, so I know it could probably stand up to the heat or to the abuse of holding it in some sort of vise to get a nice clean laser so you don't have any movement. It's a very, very rigid PLA. I have a 0.5 millimeter nozzle, and as you've seen on some of these other ones, you can almost see through it. It's almost translucent, but not this. It's super opaque. So it has a lot of the qualities that a laser engraver would need, which is an opaque surface and very rigid for whatever kind of machine you're going to be putting it into to hold it still. Now the Cali Cat, take a look at the rose twist face. The Cali Cat had very minor issues, but it was mostly due to the heat. We're running this out at 210. I could have backed this down to 205 or even 200 for PLA, but I decided to keep it at 210. And the Cali Cat actually turned out really good. There is just a little bit of melting in the corners, but this is less than some of the other prints, and I kept the temperature steady at where it was. I do see a little bit of over extrusion in some areas. Maybe that's caused by the temperature, so you can see a lot of the layer lines and a lot of the layer movement lines. But overall, this is some really easy to print with. This is, again, laser marking PLA from ColorFab. It is an experimental material, so it may not be available, but the printing experience that I had with it, I hope they do make it, and if I get a laser engraver, I definitely would use it to engrave the parts with, say, a barcode or my signature. If I was going to watermark something, instead of having it in the geometry, I could watermark it right onto the print. So overall, the laser marking PLA from ColorFab, it was super easy to print with, no problems at all. And if they make it and you've got a laser engraver, I think you can find some good use for this. All right, so that was the April box. Again, we had a lot of success. We had a lot of fun. There were really no issues, in my opinion, printing. I definitely want to get some more. Where is that guy? Some more of this Kevlar, nylon Kevlar. I didn't notice any fumes in the air either. I just kept the garage door or the shop door open and the fan going during all my printing. And I didn't notice any fumes with this. The polychromatic PLA Mystic Green from Cruciament. Definitely gonna get some more of this. Hopefully they have other colors. This EcoTough Pet G from filaments.ca, our friends up north. Super easy to print with, really great print ability, and the prints look amazing, and they have a really great PLA Pet G kind of feel to them. And this very interesting laser marking PLA, if I ever get a laser engraver, I have some filament to play with and see how it works with the laser engraver. So overall, I'd say that the filaments in the April box was a great selection of filaments. I had a lot of fun printing, and all my prints look amazing. So let's go ahead and check out the May box, and let's set everything up to go over that. All right, so we have our May samples out, and we're gonna go through these really quick. The first one we're gonna talk about is the antibacterial PLA, and this is from FiberForce, and I've never heard of this company. I had some issues with this printing the Cali Cat. Didn't have any issues printing the Rose Twist Vase, but had issues printing the Cali Cat, and we're gonna set that right there so you can see it. Now, the print settings for this are 200 to 215 C with a bed temperature of room to 50 C. The print speeds are 40 to 85 millimeters per second, and cooling is 100% because it is PLA, and that's normally what you print with. I don't go over 60% cooling on my G-Max because the fan is super powerful. But I did have some issues printing the Cali Cat, and we'll talk about that in a second. You can see it sitting right there. But the Rose Twist Vase turned out awesome. I mean, this is a really cool color. It was super easy to print with when I was printing the Rose Twist Vase. We did use a little bit of Magigoo bed adhesion, and we printed it on the glass bed at 205 C on the hot end and a bed temperature of 50 C, which is my normal print temperature for PLA if I'm printing on the glass. And I did print all my objects out at 35 millimeters per second unless I otherwise noted, and this is no exception. The print speed says 40 to 85 millimeters per second, but I printed mine at 35. And again, I didn't have any problems printing the Rose Twist Vase. It turned out awesome. It's got a really cool, nice semi-gloss finish to it, and I'm sure it says it's got some sort of antibacterial additive. I don't know what that is. I'd have to do the research, and you can go to fiberforce.it to find out more about it. But when we went to print the Cali Cat, and you can see I've got quite a few little fails sitting here, I found some diameter inconsistencies after I changed the temperature and the print speed and the bed temperature, a few things. I took the filament out and I measured it, and there were some serious diameter inconsistencies, which was causing some layer skips, and it was also causing some jams for whatever reason. So I stopped printing the Cali Cat because I didn't want to jam up the extruder and have to tear it all the way apart. But overall, the antibacterial PLA from FiberForce, when it printed the low poly Rose Twist Vase, which turned out really good, it printed fine. And that, again, I didn't have any problems with it until I started printing the Cali Cat. And then when I pulled the filament out, I noticed there was diameter inconsistency. So I stopped printing on that, and it was time to move on to the next one, which is the flame retardant ABS from filaments.ca. This is from our friends up north. And this is the first time I've ever printed with ABS. So this was a fun experience. I did use a well-ventilated shop, so I didn't get choked by the fumes, but I didn't notice anything nasty about these fumes over any other exotic material that I printed with in the past. Now the print temperatures here on the hot end was 230 C. The bed temperature listed is 110 C. Speed's not listed, cooling's not listed, and it just says print in a well-ventilated area, and that it has flame retardant capabilities, which means that it can ignite, but it'll extinguish immediately after. So I think I would definitely want to try that aspect, and I'd have to read up more about it to find out what exactly that is, that aspect of it, what causes it, because it says it's a Chai May fire retardant ABS grade PA-764 with a plus sign. I don't know anything about that. But the prints themselves, they turned out great. Again, this is my first print with ABS. The surface finish looks really good. It's kind of got a satin finish to it. It's a very strong filament. So I printed mine out at 230 C, and I only used 80 C on the bed because I didn't want to go all the way up to 110 C, and I'm glad I didn't, because even with a little bit of Magigoo, this pretty much fused to the glass bed with the Magigoo at 80 C, 230 C on the hot end. So I'm just going to leave that there because the rest of the print looks really good. I didn't want to have any problems printing the Cali Cat, so I did not use any Magigoo, and I kept the bed temperature at 80, I think it was 80 C, so, and 230 C on the hot end. And
after about half an hour of cooling on the bed, it finally just popped off, so it wasn't a problem. But the Cali Cat itself looks really good. There's just a little bit of fuzzy stringing between the tail and the body. It's very nominal, but the rest of the print looks great. Where the hot end parks before it makes a layer change in this corner here, that always gets a little bit melty no matter what my settings are, because it is a 230C hot end and sitting right there in that corner for 2 sets of layers. But overall, I think the Cali Cat looks great. The rose twist face looks really awesome. I didn't have any problems except for the bed adhesion where it just stuck like it was never going to come off. So overall, the flame retardant ABS is a really fun filament to print with. This is the first time I've ever printed with ABS, and it was time to move on to the next filament, which is this Zenith Pet. For this, you're using a hot end temperature of 240C with a bed temperature of 70C. Speed is not listed, cooling is set to off or low. And this is this white looking filament. It's our PETG filament. And it says it's Zenith PETG++ from Filamatrix. And it has similar conditions to many other PETGs, but a higher quality parts due to excellent bridging and traction properties. Zenith also gives higher impact strength and HTT than a typical PETG. So I guess it's just like a really strong PETG, a different kind. And I didn't have any problems printing it. I mean, this is a beautiful color of white too. It's a very opaque white. It's not really too light transmission through the top here. You can't really see a lot of light transmission, so that makes it a very opaque filament. It's super strong. I didn't have any problems printing with it. Again, the hot end temperature is 240C with a bed temperature of 70C. I used those exact settings and didn't have any problems. The Cali Cat, that turned out awesome. There is a little bit of stringing between the tail and the body, and it's more wispy than stringy. But other than that, it turned out great. And on this particular print, you can see, or this Cali Cat print, you can see I didn't have any problems in those corners. The hot end parked in this corner here for 2 layers, still didn't have that melty aspect, which I see in a lot of prints. So the 240C was 70C, and I did use 20% cooling on the Gmax just to give it a little bit of cooling. Normally on PETG, I might even turn the fan off, but I did use a little bit on this, and it turned out awesome. Super happy with the way this looks. This is some really interesting PETG++ Zenith from Filamatrix, and I definitely would print with this again, and I highly recommend it. It's some easy to print with, really strong PETG. After that, it was time to move on to a wood fill filament, and this is wood fill PLA from Push Plastics, and let's talk about the settings for that. So for this, it's hot end temperature of 195 to 215C with a bed temperature of 60C. Speed is not listing, cooling at 100% because I believe wood fill PLA needs a little bit of extra cooling on it. And it's best to print this with large layer heights over 0.2 millimeters, and of course a large nozzle, and of course a hardened nozzle, because in this particular type of filament, and Push Plastics particular wood fill, this actually has wood pulp in it. And it can be sanded and stained, which is great because that's the kind of filament, wood fill filament I like to find for projects that I like to do, where I want to stain them after and give them a really wood type experience, or wood type finish to them in the end. And between these 2 prints, right now there's a strong smell of like a wood burning set, or a wood smell, almost like a cardboard smell to it. And speaking of cardboard, that's pretty much what this looks like. It has a really strong cardboard. There's certain flecks of the wood pulp that may have gotten a little hotter, so they're a little darker than the others, and it really has a really interesting appearance to it. Now the hot end temperature is 195 to 215C and 60 on the bed. So we printed ours at 200C with a 60C bed, and I did use my cooling up to 60%. And this really turned out awesome. I love the way this Cali Cat looks. It's got that blacks or brown speckles in it that makes it really kind of have a wood grain look to it. And I didn't really have any problems with the melty areas that I normally do, which is the front right corner here where the extruder parks for 2 layers, and then it kind of gets a little bit melty there more than others. And this actually looks really good. Didn't have any problems with it. And the rose twist face looks awesome. This has such a cool cardboard appearance to it. You would really think this was made of wood. And I saved as much as I could. I have some here for another project. I'm gonna print with it and see how it accepts some stain, and I'll share the results with you guys later on. But overall, for this particular box, which is the May box, we had our wood fill PLA, which printed out great from Push Plastics. We had this cool Zenith PETG++ from Filamatrix. We had some flame retardant ABS from filaments.ca, which I've never printed ABS, and I had some great success with that. And we had our problem filament, which was the antibacterial PLA from Fiber Force,
where the rose twist face printed out just fine, but some diameter inconsistencies caused quite a few fails trying to print the Cali Cat. But overall, these are some really great selection of filaments. This is definitely a wide gamut of different types of materials: wood fill, PETG, ABS, and a very strange antibacterial PLA that I had some issues printing with. So overall, I'd say that the Maybox had a great selection. I didn't really have any problems printing. The only issue I had was with one of the filaments itself, but I think the results speak for themselves. These are some really cool filaments, and I definitely would recommend all of them. So that pretty much wraps up the Maybox and all the other boxes that we've gone through. I'm going to reset the stage a little bit here, and then we're going to wrap it up. All right, well, that about wraps it up. We went through 4 boxes of sample filaments from MakerBox, and that's 16 different samples of filament that we printed with. And we went over all 16, so you guys got a chance to see my experience with all these different types of materials and different types of filaments. And this was a really fun experience. This, I think, is going to be the format moving forward when we do MakerBoxes. We'll do it quarterly instead of having 4. We'll do 4 times a year, so you'll get 3 boxes, and you'll get 1 episode that features all 3 boxes, and to give you an idea of the type of materials and filaments available in those 3 boxes. But this 4-boxer, this Mega Box, MakerBox subscription box unboxing and print sample review, this turned out awesome. I'm super happy with all these cool materials. We did have some problems, we did have a few fails, but overall, all the filaments were fun to print with. We did have to experiment a little bit to get some settings dialed in, but as you can see, the results on the successful prints all speak for themselves. There's some really great filaments here from a ton of different manufacturers. And again, all the different filament, all 16, or there may be 2 or 3 that are the same company. All the filaments that we printed with will be listed down in the description, along with links to the Cali Cat and the Rose Twist Vase, and how you can get your own MakerBox subscription from MakerBox and be able to get these types of filaments every month shipped to your door. We weren't compensated in any way for this review. We do get to print with some really cool filaments, but I try to print all of what I have with, and if I do have some left over, I'll use them in projects and represent the companies accordingly. So overall, I think this is a fun experience. Again, we aren't going to do as many on the next one. We'll just do 3 at a time instead of 4. But I think you guys will find this interesting because this gives you an opportunity to look at a ton of different materials and a ton of different filaments, and I can share my print experiences with it so you can possibly learn something from that. Well, I hope you guys found this episode interesting and informative, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.